Scot Peterson was absolutely on campus through this entire event. He was armed. He was in uniform. After seeing video, witness statements, and Scot Peterson's very own statement, I decided this morning to suspend Scot Peterson without pay pending an internal investigation. As is his right, Scot Peterson chose to resign because he has the necessary time with the agency and meets the requirements of retirement. He resigned and /retired. But what I saw was a deputy arrive at the west side of Building 12, take up a position, and he never went in.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about what you just saw, which were remarks from Broward County, Florida Sheriff Scott Israel as it relates to the school resource officer of Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, a guy by the name of Scot Peterson. He had been with Broward County and their police department since 1985, so you're talking about 33 years. 32 or 33 years, depending upon when he started. And he had been with that particular high school in Parkland, Florida, where the tragedy unfolded since 2009. You're talking about almost a full decade. So he had been there for a while. He was not just some guy that got called to the scene to intervene with the situation. He was assigned to that school and he was armed. He did not go into the school like Scott Israel said. He stayed on the outside. Now, before I get into my teardown on the whole situation, before I explain why this probably happened, let's hear some words from our president, Donald Trump.
The Parkland sheriff was armed and he didn't go in. Does that give you any pause?
Deputy Sheriff Peterson, I guess his name is. I mean, they brought it out. I was surprised. But it deserves to be brought out. What he did, he's trained his whole life. There's an example. But when it came time to get in there and do something, he didn't have the courage or something happened. But he certainly did a poor job. There's no question about that. He was there for 5 minutes. For 5 minutes. That was during the entire shooting. He heard it right at the beginning. So he certainly did a poor job. But that's a case where somebody was outside, they're trained, they didn't react properly under pressure, or they were cowards. It was a real shot to the police department.
Okay, so you heard what Trump said. I'm pretty much on his side 100% of the way. And the reason why I'm on the side about the guy probably not having courage or something happened, but I tend to lean more towards what he said at first, which was a lack of courage, is because of the culture that surrounds Broward County schools, also Miami-Dade, which is right to the south of them. Broward County, I think that has Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, is right to the north of Miami-Dade County. I think the reason why there's lack of courage there, and this guy who had been with the force for over 30-something years, 6'5", came from Illinois, I presume Chicago. So you would think, okay, this guy's armed, he's a police officer, he would know, how to handle himself. He wouldn't be scared of this boy with the gun. When he has a gun, okay, you're talking about mano a mano was one person. The reason why I think he didn't go in is because, like I said, of the culture. In this place, as many other places are around the country, they're trying to do things politically that endanger their officers. There's a great thread on Twitter about this, and I'll link it in the box below. I'm not going to say that thread is 100% proven information, but there's a lot of information in that thread that you can research for yourself and make your own mind up. It's a lot of credible sources. So I say it's probably about 80 to 90% confirmed what's going on in that thread. But the essence of it is that in Broward County, as in the case in Dade County to the south of them, they engage in a thing where they reduce the crime rates by fixing the numbers. It's book cooking going on. And the way they cook the books down there is they just simply do not arrest teenagers for crimes. You have to really be a murderer, rapist, or something like that to get arrested for a crime in South Florida if you're a teenager or if you're, in school, if you're a student. And the reason for that is there's a lot of political advantages to that. You get a lot of kickbacks, you get a lot of money, you get resources, you get benefits. And the thing is, you got to keep doing it year after year. It has to be a continuous decline in crime. So if the crime is not naturally declining, what are you going to do to make it decline? Well, what happens is you have to either raise the bar or lower the bar, depending upon how you look at it. Raising the bar for what meets the criteria of a crime, or lower the bar for what is acceptable in the society in that particular area. Prime example, certain things, you're talking about home invasion, robbery, burglary, simple theft, petty theft. Those crimes, kind of get swept under the rug. It's not really a big deal. Don't arrest them for that. They may even have evidence. There's been allegations that they hide the evidence so the victim can't find it. They can never be introduced into court. So let's say the case goes to court and there's evidence of what happened. They recovered the stolen materials. They got the person, maybe even on videotape doing it, but you don't have all the evidence necessary to be able to go forward and get a conviction. And if you do get a conviction, it might be a very low sentence. This is what I talk about all the time about the book cooking that goes on. People want to tell me all the time that, hey, isn't there still a problem with the police harassing black people, with us getting put in jail for longer sentences? Same thing with Hispanics and whatnot. I'm like, no, especially not in the places where we live. Definitely not in the inner city. Absolutely not. There's a thing called a Bronx jury, and shout out to Colin Flaherty for that term, where you will go in front of a jury of your peers in a lot of these inner city areas, and they will refuse to convict you on maybe simple things, but also up to very egregious things, rape, robbery, murder. It just won't convict you. And if they do convict you, they give you a very light sentence. You can go to Chicago in the inner city and kill somebody. You might get 5 to 10 years in the penitentiary. But if you do the same crime outside of Chicago, like past Chicago land and, southern parts, then you might get the whole shebang. You might get 25 to life, which is the appropriate sentence. But in the inner city, it's not like that, which is why you had like 38 or 39 calls to Nikolas Cruz's house, who was a school shooter. You have 38 or 39 calls to his house. You have the FBI tipped off independently of all the police calls to his house. Okay, the police calls to his house and the FBI tips are just one thing. And then they're interviewing the kids, and the kids are like, yeah, we knew he was going to do that. We knew he would be a school shooter. Everybody knew that he was crazy. He had got suspended. He had brought ammunition to school. There were all kind of warning signs all along the way, all kind of red flags. And the proper authorities were always reported. They always knew the information was had. So you got to ask yourself, why was nothing done? Why was there no intervention attempted? Maybe it's because they didn't want to, they didn't want to arrest him. They didn't want to harass him. That kind of thing going on. It's the SJW narrative. There's a lot of political stuff going on too. Like I said, when you continuously reduce the crime, you get more money, you get more benefits, and you also get the praise and adoration of people around you. It's political people that are involved with it, politicians. They want to say, okay, I'm going to hang my hat on this. Look at the crime reduction in Broward County, Miami-Dade, or whatever. And the general public may not even realize what's actually happening is that the crime is not going down at all. The crime may be even skyrocketing. They don't look at it like that. They just look at these numbers that the news comes out with. And that's one more leg of it as well, which was mentioned in this thread, the media. The media is in on it. They're in bed with the politicians. They're in bed with the crooked police. They're in bed with everybody that has something to gain. Okay, the media can report positive stories. They won't do so much about black crime. They won't get accused of trying to bury some of the criminal stories about what happens in South Florida. Okay, and as I'm talking about the illegal immigration situation, I mean, do you have immigration customs enforcement down there in South Florida doing what they're supposed to be doing? There's got to be a lot of illegals down there. South Florida is basically another part of Spain. Everybody speaks Spanish. So obviously it's going to be a lot of illegals, but are there really any kind of immigration enforcement policies? Are there any immigration raids? I can't really tell. At the end of the day, as I close, I think this story here is a cautionary tale to tell people all around the country that you can't just go out here and say, okay, we demand lower crime without really wanting to have the proper things in place to reduce the crime. You can reduce crime by having actual real penalties, real sentences. In that thread I've been referring to on Twitter, another thing was pointed out was that the criminals understood what was happening. They knew that the police were not really trying to convict people or arrest them in certain parts of the month. Okay, because they have like a maximum arrest quota per month. See, people think it's the other way around. I think you gotta fulfill a quota, like you got a minimum. Nah, it's a maximum you gotta fulfill. Okay, and once you hit that maximum, you can't really arrest anymore, or it may look bad on you if you arrest more, because they got it broken down month to month, and they know when you're gonna have higher crime or lower crime just based upon historical statistics. So that number is probably generated for each month depending upon the level of crime that's typically seen. So once you hit your maximum, it's highly frowned upon to do any kind of arresting. If you can let it go, if it's a trap, if somebody got cocaine in the car, if they got weed in the car, if they're driving a little bit erratic, maybe they drunk or something like that, let it go. If you find a body in the trunk of somebody's car, that's different. But anything beyond that, simple assault, robbery, whatever, let it go. Not really a big deal. So a lot of the dope boys caught on to it and said, okay, once they get past their monthly allotment for arrestments, we're going to stage some of our bigger crimes in that period of time. That's how it goes, because they know they won't be arrested. Everybody's in on it. The gangbangers make money. The politicians make money. The police officers make money. Those that are corrupt, that is. Sometimes you have the media. They make money as well. It's a whole big game. And at the end of the day, the people that suffer are those that are supposed to be protected, the regular innocent people that don't have a dog in the fight one way or the other, as far as getting money from the federal government for good performance or not getting money from the federal government for good performance. They're just trying to go to school, they're just trying to go to work, and that's it. And they got to be victim to this sick game that these elite people and or regular Joe Schmo patsies are playing. So I say all that to say this. I think the officer did not go into the school, 6'5", a veteran of the force. I think the reason why he didn't go into the school is because he had been trained to not really intervene in stuff like that. Okay, when you spend your past 10 years of your career as a school resource officer in a place where they say, hey, you can't put your hands on the kids, you can't really arrest them, we need to try to keep the numbers down, just go in there and be a cool guy. When it comes time to actually do something, you might just freeze up, because your whole time you've been spent basically being a babysitter and not a police officer that's able to police. You've been handcuffed. Either that or he was a coward in nature anyway. I find it hard to believe you've been in the force for 30 years and you just automatically become a coward. I think it was a process that made him become that way. But what do you think? Do you think that the reason why he didn't go into the school is because of the culture of the place that made him into the coward that did not go into the school? Or is it because he thought that it may have been multiple shooters, he was outgunned, he wanted backup because of the culture that surrounds Broward County, Dade County, South Florida in general, that says don't intervene with these kids because you're going to get them an arrest, and we need to try to keep the arrest down. And that whole culture just kind of came up on him, and he was not able to rise to the call of duty in that particular moment. But do you think he just was a coward in general? It wasn't a political issue? Was he waiting for backup? Did he think it was more than one shooter? Is that what was going on? At the end of the day, there's got to be an explanation, because he was there for 5 minutes, like why the whole thing was going down. And he was there before that because, like I said, he was assigned to that school. He was not just a beat cop or a bike cop or something like that. It just happened to be in a school at that particular point in time. He had been stationed at that school since 2009. We need to have a better culture in the U.S. of holding people accountable for what they do rather than making excuses. But whatever your comments are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.